when I was, when I,
Switch it on.
when I was, yeah,
Whenever someone asks where I'm from, I always take a deep breath because it's never a short answer. My dad's from New Zealand, my mum's from Sweden. They met in London, I was born in Belgium, my sister was born in Poland, and now we live in Switzerland. So, where am I from? When people ask, they usually expect a one-word answer, but I don't have that. And that's because I'm what's called a third culture kid. A third culture kid is someone who grows up in a different culture from their parents. And instead of fully belonging to either one, they sort of create a third culture of their own. You can picture this with 3 overlapping circles. One for the parents, one for where they live, and the third a mixture of the two. Though to be honest, I feel a little bit more like a fifth culture kid, with 2 parents from 2 different countries, living in another, and lots of expats for friends. Not the Olympics, just a lot of circles. Language makes it even more challenging. I speak Swedish, English, and Polish fluently, and now my school wants me to learn German as well. When I was little, I didn't think in terms of nationalities. I simply thought in terms of mum's language, dad's language, and kindergarten language. So once, when I was 3, we visited London, and I was so surprised everyone there spoke English. I thought that was my dad's language. So I went up and down every carriage and on the tube, introducing myself to everyone like I'd just found my own people. When my dad first visited my mum's family in Sweden, my young cousin was shocked my dad did not speak Swedish and said, "I'm only 6 years old and I can speak Swedish." Another time, at a swimming pool in Mexico, I tried making friends with some kids. I tried English, nothing. Polish, nothing. Swedish, and still nothing. I'd run out of languages. What do I do now? Occasionally, I'd also try translating a joke from English to Polish, and it just dies completely. But there are also funny misunderstandings, too, with the difference in culture. In New Zealand, they say, "bring a plate," which means bring some food to share. When my grandmother first heard this, she thought they must be running low on plates, so she brought a whole stack of empty ones. Another time, here in Poland, my class was told to come to school one spring day wearing a hat. We had no idea they meant a hat full of flowers. Can you spot the odd one out? Yes, a pirate hat. But there's also a downside to all of this. The hardest question isn't what language do you speak. It's where is home? Because I can feel at home almost anywhere. Poland, England, Sweden, New Zealand, even places I've only visited briefly. And at the same time, nowhere feels fully home. It's like there's always something missing. And the hardest part of all, friends. Most of my closest friends have been foreigners, and I love that. I feel like I fit in with them. But foreigners move. Every couple of years, someone leaves. Can you imagine your best friend moving to America with a 6-hour time difference and only being able to talk to them on the phone every now and then? It just doesn't feel the same anymore. Especially when you used to play sports, go out to cafes, and hang out at each other's homes. One of the first questions I now ask myself when I meet someone I really like is, when am I going to have to say goodbye? Imagine meeting someone great, and instead of just enjoying it, part of you is already bracing for the loss. I've cried many times when friends have moved away. Sometimes it feels like your friendships are scattered all across the world like a map of unfinished stories. And when you lose enough people, you start to wonder, do I belong anywhere? You feel like the stranger in every room. To make it even worse, sometimes people don't accept you or find you strange because of your difference. You're always the odd one out. You don't feel normal anywhere. Sometimes even smiling hurts. And that's where the question begins. If your culture doesn't fully define you, if your passport doesn't explain you, if your language changes depending on who you're with, then who are you? Where does your identity come from? For a long time, I think I tried adjusting myself depending on where I was. A little bit more Polish here, a little bit more English somewhere else, and a little bit more Swedish that. It's easy to start wearing masks. Pretending can make it easier. But if your identity changes depending on where you are, then it's just not stable, because places change, people leave, and languages shift. So I had to start asking deeper questions. Because there's some incredible strengths that come with this kind of life. You learn to adapt, you learn to listen. You realize quickly that the way you've always done it isn't the only way to do it, because you've seen 10 other ways. You're not as afraid of the unknown, because honestly, the unknown has sort of been your norm. You approach difference with curiosity as opposed to suspicion. And you go deep, quickly, in relationships you click with. Because when time might be limited, you don't waste on small talk. But the biggest gift came when I realized something deeper. If my identity can't rest on geography, then it has to rest on something deeper, something more permanent, something that travels with me, something that doesn't change depending on where I am. For me, that became faith. Not in a cultural way, not in this is what my country does for me, but in a personal way. I began to realize, if I believe that I am created intentionally, if I believe my worth does not depend on fitting into one culture perfectly, if I believe I am fully known by God, then I am not rootless. My roots just grow differently. They don't grow in soil, they grow in something deeper. And that means I can belong anywhere. Not because I match the culture perfectly, but because my identity is rooted in something else. It isn't built on passports or accents. It's built on something deeper, something that doesn't move when I do. Here's what I've realized. This isn't just about third culture kids. Every single person in this room has walked into a space and felt like the outsider. Every single person has wondered, do I fit in? Am I normal? Do I belong? Even if your parents come from the same country, they come from different families, different habits, different expectations. Every relationship is in some way cross-cultural. We're all navigating identity. We're all negotiating differences. So maybe the question isn't, where do you come from? Maybe the best question is, what are you rooted in? Because if you're only rooted in one environment, then life will eventually shape that. You never know the twists and turns life can take you. But if you're rooted in something deeper, values, faith, purpose, being known and loved, then you can move across borders without losers. I still don't have a one-word answer when someone asks me where I'm from, but maybe that's it. Maybe home isn't what's on that. Maybe home isn't the people you love. Maybe home isn't the values you carry. Maybe home is an identity that doesn't change when everything else does. Home is everywhere, and sometimes it feels like nowhere. But if your identity is secure, then you're never actually lost. Maybe home is not where you were from. Maybe home is who you are becoming. Thank you.